I played more than 24 games in 2024. If you know me, that's a rarity because A, I don't really play new games. I don't really consider myself a casual gamer, but I'm definitely not hardcore all there all the time. And you know what? In 2022, I probably played two games, one of which was Elden Ring, and that was the entire year. But that was also a good year. I could that tier list would have been really good, and that's what I'm doing here. So why don't we just get into it? So this kind of spills over from 2023, but I started playing Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty late in December and through most of January of 2024. So let's count that as this year. And in fact, let's count that as a game because while the base Cyberpunk came out in 2020 and I played the hell out of it on a PlayStation 4 Pro, which, is actually not that much better than the baseline, especially on launch day, if you remember. And if I have some footage of that, yeah, it I went back. It is rough. Uh, but Phantom Liberty, I didn't have a PS5 by this point, so I played it on an Xbox Series S, and yeah, it's great. I love it. It's if you've never played Cyberpunk, basically last year was the time to get into it. They've not fixed all the bugs, but even putting that aside, Phantom Liberty is a great game. Beautiful campaign, beautiful side missions, great new areas to explore. It really does expand on the base game, not just in terms of spaces, but in terms of themes, and it sort of reinforces a lot of the themes. Um, it what a great way to start the year! What a great way to end 2023 and start 2024. This definitely goes to the top tier. I don't like to keep playing AAA games or big games, so I usually switch it up and try to go for a indie. And I still had my PS Plus or something at the time, so I went into Dead Cells, which I'd heard a lot about. I like Metroidvanias, but I don't always have the patience for them or even the manual dexterity. But yeah, Dead Cells is really really good. I did a run through, and that did take too long. That took a couple of hours, but I'm pretty sure that that's not how you actually play Dead Cells. You kind of have to. It seems like only the beginning, and you kind of keep going back into it, unlocking more, finding more ways to it. I really liked it. It's not amazing. After I was done with one run, I just felt enough, and I just let it go. After that, I will come back to it. So yeah, it's an A tier for me. Now, I have no history with the Star Wars Battlefront series. I played a lot of the Star Wars games from the original, PS2 era and all of that, but somehow the Battlefront ones just never made an impact, or I just never tried them. I do remember maybe trying them in a store at some point, and they were a bit too frantic. Battlefront 2, which I only played the single player of, and the single player DLC, and that's sort of what I'm basing it on here. Years after the controversy about loot boxes and all of that has just subsided, so it really just you're looking at a game that is frequently on sale for very cheap, and I would suggest getting the DLC because it's a fun game. It's short, but the story campaign is pretty good. The game is a bit janky from a single player person's perspective, but the story is really good. Especially the DLC. I liked seeing a Star Wars story that goes all the way from literally from the last moments of Return of the Jedi to uh, sort of setting up the new trilogy, and with characters who were, they grew on me. I liked them. I did. It's a. I frequently find the Star Wars extended universe video games better than the let's say linear media stuff that has come, especially since George Lucas left it in the hands of other people. Let's say so. Yeah, Battlefront 2 um, gets an A tier for me, and especially because of the DLC, the story campaign. Play that. Right. So about 20 years ago now, when Halo had come to the PC for the first time. I didn't really have any consoles at that time. I was between PlayStations anyway, and I was not an Xbox person. I played a bit of Halo, did not really get it. I was a Half-Life and No One Lives Forever type of first-person shooter guy. I could not quite figure out the systems and the sort of the general flow of things. So I thought, let me give Halo Master Chief Collection a try, especially now that I had an Xbox Series S. And I'm sorry to report that my feelings on Halo haven't really changed. I played a fair amount of Destiny and Destiny 2, and I can see some of the DNA of that. But Halo 1 is um, the gameplay, the combat is still good. That's the thing about Bungie that is not really changed in 20 years. But it's still very repetitive in terms of the level design, and there's just like a lot of frustration, and also it's just like getting older and where now everything is checkpointed properly, and you die and suddenly you're 15 minutes before. There's like all sorts of stupid things like that it's fun, and it's nice as a historical thing, I guess, but for me it just didn't really work. So I'm actually giving this a C. So uh, feel free to vent your frustrations in the comments. Unicorn Overlord. But Unicorn Overlord, I played a demo. And by demo, I mean this was the one that's available. That's the first 5 or 6 hours of the game. You can basically, even though it's timed, it's sort of set up where you can finish the first act of the game, let's say. So you'll get a good idea of the systems, the characters, and whatnot. And it's a beautiful game to look at. There's not really so much strategy and tactics. It's you sort of set up your systems and set up your parties, and then they kind of just like go at each other. So it's like, I guess, like chess. There are basic rules and things. It's not as advanced or even as something that I played back in the day, like Shining Force. Uh, but it scratches that same itch, and yes, it looks gorgeous. Like the animation is superb, just on the visuals alone, and just the sumptuousness, the music, the presentation. I'm giving this a B. Even though it's a demo, you play the demo, you'll get 6 hours out of it, and you'll know whether you like it or not within the first hour or two. So after that, I finally got a PS5, and of course, the first thing I did was play Astro's Playroom. Now, I didn't play Astro Bot, but Astro's Playroom is basically like the best demo, and you're sensing a pattern here this year. I played a lot of demos. Astro's Playroom is not just a great demo, it's a great game, period. If you have played Game of the Year winner Astrobot by now, you need to go back and play this. It is not just a silly pack-in game to show off the PS5's controller and all its bells and whistles. Although it's really great at that too. I literally show it whenever I need to show people my PS5, because there aren't that many people I know who are gamers. I'm like, okay, play this game and you will understand why this thing is special. All the little feedback on the way surfaces feel on your, and then all the little things in the speakers. Astro's Playroom is Astrobot. It's great. It's a small slice of really, really good fun. Uh, and yeah, that's S tier for sure. It's short and sweet, and it's brilliant. Something that isn't short and sweet, but is brilliant in the way I played it, is Hitman, World of Assassination, as it is now called. So this is confusing because the Hitman, as some people call it, Hitman no subtitle or Hitman 2016 or whatever, came out episodically, where each level and each area was sort of put out every few weeks or a month. And that was the first game. Then there was a second game with 5 more levels continuing the story. There was a third game. And now, if you buy the third game, I think, which has been rebranded World of Assassination, you just get the whole story. So that's what I did. I just played through the whole story. Again, not the best way to play it, because the Hitman levels are kind of these sandboxes that you kind of want to sort of spend your time in to get to know. But I thought, there is a story here. Let me see what it's like. and it's a good story. It's like I'm glad that these guys are off to handle James Bond because as of the time of this video, the movies are not going anywhere. Very famously, not there's a tussle between the people making them in Amazon MGM. But the game, if you just play the story missions, the main like critical path, you get a great spy story. Obviously, you see production value suffer a little, not in the levels but in the cinematics. They clearly didn't have the budget for it in the second one, and they tried to do better in the third one, and they did. It's nowhere as good as when they had square Square Enix's in-house teams in Japan working on them, probably at their highest level. That would have been fantastic. Maybe one day we'll get a remaster of that if this does well enough. But yeah, weird way to play Hitman. um, I will go back and just sort of play the sandbox version of it, seeing all the various bits and getting the clown suits and whatnot. But this is another S tier for me. I will go back and play just these missions. So going with my AAA to indie kind of thing, the Talos Principle, which I had almost no idea what it was. I sort of knew that it was a first-person thing in the style of Portal, puzzle rooms and whatnot. Uh, I was pleasantly surprised by it. Um, there is a lot of great puzzles in here, uh, and in the end, I went back and did a lot of the optional things, got the true ending, so to speak, and all of that. I think is a bit more like you get a bit full of the game in a good way. About 75% of the way through, and then you can just finish it off. And I didn't do any of the DLC. So right now I'm putting this one in my A tier. But you know what? They just recently announced a remaster with like Unreal Engine 5, and it's going to be better looking, but the same great game. And there's the DLC. So I'm actually going to wait around for that and go and do that fully whenever that comes out sometime in 2025. But the Talos Principle is not a bad game. Beautiful, again, in its own sort of minimalist way. Uh, if you like puzzles, definitely play it. There haven't been any clunkers so far, other than my horrible slighting of Halo. But yeah, the after that I tried out a game that I'd always been curious about, and I had great hopes for, and it is a beautiful looking game. It's called the Artful Escape, but I finished about 50% of it and I gave up. And this doesn't usually happen for me with games. Even if it's a bad game, sometimes I'll just like see it through and hope there's something in there, but there wasn't enough game to this thing. It's presented beautifully. There are the graphics alone, and maybe you will take to the music a bit more than I did. I just don't care for that particular type of music. And then the game itself was literally running left to right, occasionally jumping, randomly pressing buttons to kind of do rhythm gamey things. And then the characters, they were borderline unlikable for me. And in a game that's about being true to yourself, and telling original stories, this kind of felt weirdly, I don't know, like it was trying too hard to be something it couldn't quite live up to, either as a game or as a story. And yeah, that's why I'm kind of putting it in my D tier. There are probably people who will love this game, for whom this will be the best game they've ever played. I'm not one of those people. I'm sorry. I went back to comfort food after that because I had never played all of the Uncharted games. I played most of them through at least twice, except for Uncharted 4, which I had not. So when the PS5 version was there with its nice 60 FPS and nice graphics, I played it through again, and I really love Uncharted 4. I don't think it's in my top Uncharted's. That one I would reserve for 2 and 3, and you'll see more later. But it's not. I think again the problem with Uncharted 4 is it goes on a little too long. I like the story, I love the characters, the graphics are beautiful, it still looks fantastic. Great setting, good mechanics. Like I love that they added things like the grappling hook and more interesting gunplay and cover and a bit of stealth and all of that. Some even slightly open world parts, but it does go on slightly too long, and I don't know what they could trim out of it. Um, but yeah, it's still you know a game and a tier game, but just not as good as Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, which is almost sort of seen as a side thing, almost like an expansion, the way something like Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty would be. But Uncharted Lost Legacy is superb. Now, I have certain misgivings about the way it portrays the part of South India it's supposed to be portraying, since I am from that part of South India, but that's like a different video and a different essay, and I have complicated feelings about that. But as a game, as an Uncharted adventure, it is fantastic. If you ever had any doubts that Uncharted couldn't go on without Nathan Drake, I think this game more than proves that you can and they should actually do adventures with other people in that world, because all of them are they're good characters. All the people involved with Uncharted, the writers, famously people like Amy Hennig, they've really set the foundation well. Uncharted Lost Legacy is superb. I will replay it just to, be in that world again. S tier, for sure. Here's another one that's going to be controversial. I tried playing Grand Theft Auto 5 for the first time. I have never really ever played a Grand Theft Auto game. Again, I have tried back in the day Grand Theft Auto 3. I've never played 4. I've played Red Dead Redemption, as you'll see later, and loved that one, but something about Grand Theft Auto 5 did not jive for me. I played 45 minutes of it, did not like any character, did not really like any of the missions or the handling of the anything. I may come back to it, but for right now, it's like I don't even know if it should be on this list, but whatever, it's in here. Now, instead of going to another India, I went for something big and something that I was trepidatious of. I love the Assassin's Creed games. They are the only real triple A mainstream thing that I play. I don't play Call of Duty. I don't play sports games, but like Assassin's Creed is something I've played now since the first game, and love to take my time with it. I played most of them multiple times. Loved all of them for various reasons, uh, including all the way up to Syndicate, which there's a video upcoming about that one and why I think you should play it. But I put off playing these because I knew they would change the formula. They'd made them RPGs. Um, and I like Assassin's Creed Origin. I love the world. It's one of the most beautiful open worlds ever made, I would say. And, it's wonderful that a studio can spend so much time and effort making a rendition of an ancient world like this. I didn't really like the story. I didn't like that. Well, throughout most of it, there's just like constant things about kids dying, which is like, yes, thematically correct to what the story they're trying to tell and the world they're trying to tell it in, but that there's a weird, I don't know, unevenness to the main story versus the world it's in, which I might get into in a more involved video. But by the end of it, I didn't really like the revamped combat. I thought original Assassin's Creed style stealth and mission work was fine. I think maybe Black Flag is the uh, top of that style for me. Maybe some of the Ezio trilogy. This one is just kind of like it felt very, what people have thought Ubisofty games are, where you just go to a point in the map, kill a few things, and tick off something. But it's still a good game, so I'm putting it in A tier. But maybe with like if I was doing halves, it would be somewhere between the two. Clearly, I didn't learn my lesson with large games. I went into Gotham Knights right after this, and on console, it's ridiculous that it still just runs at 30 FPS. And again, it's a service game. I did play Squad, but that's coming up as well because hey, that's on sale. Gotham Knights also several times it's on sale. This one I played on PS Plus. I love the story. I love the way the characters were handled. I thought it was a great thing to do, and no spoilers, but the way they handled the ending is, I think it did a disservice to what had come before in some ways for a bit. Um, I like looking at all the characters in all their cool suits, and I didn't care that I didn't have to now pay live service loot boxy things for it, or to just get something slightly higher. I just looked at it cosmetically. It's nowhere as good as an Arkham game. The combat is not as tight. It's just kind of keep frenzying. There's this frenzy of you just hitting buttons and not really having that nice rhythm from the free flow combat of before. Uh, I still like it. It's fine. I think you can still play it. I'm tempted to put this up here, but I definitely didn't like it as much as Origins in the end, so I'll just put it here in B. When a game is that long and two of them are that long, like finding the perfect palette cleanser is superb. And Streets of Rage 4, oh my god, I played Streets of Rage 2 and 3 back on my Mega Drive back in the 90s, and this was so perfect. It's literally a couple of hours long, single player, and you can, it's got some of the old craft of the old games where you can't quite line up a punch unless you're literally on the same pixel as the other person. But man, this is so much fun. I would gladly put this. I think I'll put this in S tier because um, it's so short and sweet, and if you get it, I guess, at a price that you like, then really there's nothing wrong with it. I could imagine going back and playing this with friends. I did play that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one the year before, and I got bored with it. I played it with my niece, and we both kind of got bored with it. It's a great game, but it kind of goes on too long. I never finished it. But Streets of Rage 4, perfect length, perfect game. Speaking of games that are the perfect length, Miles Morales, which is, I don't know, you can't call it Spider-Man 2 anymore. It's Spider-Man 1.5, I guess. A great side story, or rather an interquel, if you want to call it that, between the stories of Spider-Man 1 and the one that comes after it that I haven't played yet, but we'll get to that. Uh, I like playing Miles. He's a much faster, zippier character, uh, and the story was decent. It had the usual tropes of everything happening to three characters and everyone being connected, but that's, I guess, par for the course for superhero things. But not considering the first Spider-Man game was a great version of all those characters and stories. So I think this is still an 8-year game for me. As is, of course, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Same studio as Spider Man, the thing they made before, the thing that made me fall in love with them. When I got my PS5 way back in the day, it came with Ratchet and Clank 3 as a pack in. I had no idea what these games were, but I fell in love instantly. Insomniac does game feel like nobody else, and now they do polish, and like this is one of the prettiest looking pieces of graphic art ever. It's as good looking as a movie. You don't need a PS5 Pro to, you know, see how great it is. It's also a good, solid Ratchet and Clank game, which I think there are, yes, in a year where yes, Astrobot and things like that are there. It's nice to have something like that. So that's top tier for me. After that, I went back to the Halos, and you know, considering I didn't really love Halo the original, Halo 2 is, I guess, in context, maybe I did not mind the switching between the two characters, the two points of view. I liked the new CGI they put in for all the cinematics. Beautifully done. I think it's a little better than the original Halo. And then, yes, I went into Halo 3, and it's a nice way to end that story. You can see why people kind of took to it as this big, grand, epic space thing, and this is all long before things like Mass Effect and all came along and kind of did similar things. So yeah, I'm not the biggest Halo person in the world. um, Sorry. just did not grow up with them, did not, I'm a Half-Life guy. So and I don't care about multiplayer, so campaign it is, and it's a good campaign. It's just not a great campaign. Another series I'm very late to is Yakuza. I played Yakuza 0 last year. If there was an SS tier, I would put it on that for this year, but anyway, that's a different story. I played Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of Yakuza 1 with newer graphics using the Yakuza 0 engine and remade things and some more uh, things like that. It's not as good as Yakuza 0. Almost nothing is as good as Yakuza 0, in my opinion. I think the problem maybe is that they had to stick to a lot of the same PS2 tropes. So a lot of the stories, the side stories that you come to for a Yakuza game, they're just not as deep or not as interesting. But it's still a great game. I will put it into the A tier, and it's a great game along the way to many other great games. There are like 10 of them at this point, so it's okay for one of them to be not as perfect as the rest. Like towards the end of the year, I'm counting the Assassin's Creed DLCs as different things because they were large enough to be sort of big uh, expansions of their own in some ways. And I wanted to talk about them because they are, you get, especially when they're on sale, you get the expansion pass and the game for fairly low. So you might as well get all of them. I think they are all worth playing. The hidden ones is interesting, but also kind of more of the same, more slightly weird people and lots of, you know, the same theme of children in peril or nearly dying or whatever comes in, and it's all right. I don't think it's the greatest even Assassin's Creed DLC out there. um, but yeah, you might as well play it on the way to one of the best Creed DLCs out there, which is Curse of the Pharaohs, which is really good in terms of finishing off a lot of the themes of the whole game. It's really well steeped in Egyptian culture, mythology of that time. Spoiler, you literally get to visit the afterlife of some sort, and it is beautiful. Like, you can see that this team really put the effort in and really wanted to show off this part of it, and then they were fine to take Assassin's Creed away from the pure kind of real world and modern animus stuff and do some weirder things. They'd started doing that with Unity. They had done some of it here and there, but this one really lets that shine. It's totally worth it. It's definitely not a C tier. It's A for me. I said I've not really played many Rockstar games. I have played the first Red Dead Redemption around 10 years ago now, and I did not expect to like that one, and I loved it. I played through it entirely, every last thing, every last side mission. It's a great game. It's, now I think it's finally on PC and things, so, and it's on modern consoles. You really should play that. You should also play Undead Nightmare, which I did not play back in the day because I'm just, again, not a zombie game person. But hey, this thing had, cheats and things to give you, make some of it easier. Uh, and yeah, Undead Nightmare, if it is a bit clunky, especially now after you played things that have solved a lot of these problems. I still don't know how to run properly in these games. It's either you have to mash buttons, you have to press them at a rhythm. I don't know, but the reason Red Dead is great for me, at least this first one. I've never played the sequel. It's on my list. Uh, but this first one is great for the characters and the writing. It is the most like skewering, tongue-in-cheek thing ever. Even if especially if you're not American, maybe some of this is lost on me, but like, it's great, and that is what you come to this for, because even its take on a zombie apocalypse is ridiculously funny. It's not a great game, and it doesn't really end all that well. It just kind of ends like most things. Okay, you kind of do a final mission, and that's kind of done then. But it is really fun. to just go and find those characters and then see how they react to this bizarre situation. Um, yeah, I mean it's not absolute must play. I don't miss that I didn't play it with the main game. In fact, I'm kind of glad I waited a long time so that I didn't have the impact of that first game in my head when playing this. But yeah, it's a good game. You should play it. And now we come to what is likely technically, the only 2025 release. Well, one of two if you can spot it. And even that is a remaster of a game from 2016. I'm talking about Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, the one that people say, why does it exist? Who cares? I care. I think Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the best stories and open worlds ever made. It was always beautiful to look at. It still is. And this version is even better, even though I can't really tell. You go and watch Digital Foundry for that. But it's such a beautiful game. It's even when you just sort of. I played a new game plus because I imported my old save. Uh, the characters are great. I didn't do anything except the critical path, and I would not recommend it, especially if you're playing this for the first time through, because so much of this game is in the text and the story and all the little diary entries and the lore of the what happened to the world, what is happening to the current world, how the current world came to be. There are 5 or 6 levels of strands of storytelling in this, and the fact that they all kind of dovetail together and talk to each other in terms of theme and resonance. It's I love this game. You should play any version of it. If you have a PS4, play that. If you have a PC, play whatever version is there. If you have the PS5, get this one. It's not They aren't even brand new, and they don't think it's full price. So speaking of things that aren't full price, like a lot of you, I was curious about the Crew 2, mostly because of the Crew 1 being delisted and then Ubisoft being sued for it kind of going away. So when they announced that the Crew 2 would maybe get an offline mode eventually, and some 1 week, I think in October, they just had it on sale for a deep, deep discount of like 80, it was 80 or 90 cents, the equivalent of through most of the world. I just snapped it up and I tried it out, and yeah, it's not a bad game. I hope there is a um, offline mode eventually. At 90 cents, I'm not really going to complain if it goes away. It's not bad to try. I did not actually play many of the race missions. There's this other mode where you like they're called, I guess, stories or something, where you get a point on the map and a general idea of where you have to go. Not even a point on the map, just a picture, and says, okay, you go to this part of the US and this town and find this barn or something, and you have to drive from some place to that place with a kind of vehicle. And these can take up like an hour and a half sometimes. Um, and that's great podcast listening time. I just keep a podcast on, do these missions, and yeah, even for that, it's certainly worth 90 cents. I would not pay more because I'm just not, like I said, I'm not into the race side of it. Although that's pretty fun. I actually like the physics model of this a bit more than the Forza Horizon 4 demo I tried, which is not on this list because it's like, okay, it's just a demo. It's not even an advanced demo like some of these. Um, yeah, this one, it's I don't know where to put this one, but I guess I mean it's not a C tier game. I wasn't disappointed or anything, but it also you have to see the context. I paid almost nothing for it. I guess B, it's a good. It would be a good 7 out of 10 type game. Which brings me to our final thing, which is a curiosity. My first Gran Turismo is a demo. There's no getting around it. But this is not my first Gran Turismo. My first Gran Turismo was Gran Turismo 1 back in 1998. I remember buying a copy of it and a dual shock controller for the first time using analog controls and going wow when, the thing vibrated. And you know what? With the dual sense controller, they've I went wow again because, like I said with Astrobot, this first party Sony games really do take advantage of these things. The rumble features alone are just sublime in this thing. It's a demo. It's 3 tracks, about a dozen cars that you can unlock pretty quickly. You can go through this in about 2 hours. Uh, there's the license test which sort of teach you how to drive, and then you can time trial and you can practice and you can do a few races. And it's a it is a demo only because Gran Turismo games are huge. I remember a time, and I'm dating myself here, that sometimes games did only have 3 tracks and a dozen cars, and that was an entire full priced game well into the PlayStation era until about 1998, when Gran Turismo showed up and said, "Okay, here's a dozen tracks, hundreds of cars." So yeah, if you have never tried a Gran Turismo, or you just want a decent enough introduction to that kind of game, this is this is A tier for me. Not S tier. Maybe if they would have put in 5 tracks, maybe if there were 20 cars, maybe if they had put in split screen, just even one split screen. They don't do that. I think it has VR support, but not split screen. Maybe I don't think it even has any online uh, matchmaking or anything. So yeah, it's a demo, but it's a good demo. You should play it if you've never played a Gran Turismo game, especially try it out. And yeah, that is my 2024. This uh, playing these many games is actually kind of why I started working on this channel this year more than previous years. Because, like I said, one year I just played Elden Ring. I did not even play the DLC this year because I knew I didn't want to spend the entire year only playing Elden Ring. I may go back to Grand Theft Auto one day and play it. I may go back to the Artful Escape, but probably not. I might just, look up the ending on YouTube. That's kind of what people do these days. I recommend playing pretty much everything on this list, especially the S tier, uh, and is playing them in the way that I talked about. You can play Hitman through its critical path story. Do not play Horizon through its critical path story. Enjoy the 2 hours of Streets of Rage. Enjoy Uncharted Lost Legacy. And yeah, give things like Battlefront 2 story a chance. Give the DLC, Curse of the Pharaohs, a chance. Unicorn Overlord is really fun. It's almost like a game that plays itself. I think someone described it as almost like a AAA auto battler, but it's worth it. Hell, even the Halos are fun. I'm kind of out of the context of it, even though I did live through that time and played the contemporaries of it, and I played the things after it. The Halos have their place in history, and you should play all of them. And with that, I will see what I'm setting up for 2025. There will be more videos, including on some of the games in here, some thoughts I have, especially on themes and what they could have done right or wrong. Some of them I won't cover. I'm definitely never talking about the Artful Escape again. Sorry. But yeah, I will see you in 2025 with more videos. Uh, and this has been Weirder. I've been Vishal.